Hi everybody. Today I have in my praxis my friend Sebastian, and we're working together on his problem since 2012. But what was the problem? Sebastian, please remind me.
So the actual problem started in 2005. I was in Egypt working at a kiteboarding school, and that's where I had the first symptoms in terms of cognitive problems. I had a lot of flu suddenly. I felt weaker. That's basically when it all started with the symptoms.
Yeah. And what did you do then? Diagnostics?
It took like another half year until I really got the diagnosis, because 6 months before, after I was in Egypt, I had mononucleosis, and I didn't really recover from that. And after that, I got the diagnosis CFS, Chronic Fatigue Syndrome.
And what kind of treatments did you do before we met?
Oh, I tried many different treatments, from conventional to weird to wonderful. So like conventional medicine would offer antidepressants, which I could not really take, or didn't help. It just made the symptoms worse, actually, in my case. Then I tried several approaches by practitioners in terms of diet, in terms of supplementation. And there were some things that would help me a little bit, but not really a breakthrough. Actually, the tendency was downwards. I got worse over the years, and 2011 was probably the worst year.
The worst year.
Or actually before we met,
Yes.
a couple of months before we met. Was,
Yeah. And so we met in 2012 because how did you find my treatment and what I offer?
So I was searching for help myself a lot, and I went to internet forums where people with the same condition would interchange ideas, and that's where I read about intermittent hypoxic training. And I had it in the back of my mind for a while, and in summer 2012 I decided to try it out, and that's how I contacted you.
Yeah, good. And then I remember that it was pretty hard when we started. Yeah, it was like ups and downs continuously.
Yes. So yeah, first of all, it was when I contacted you, it was about the worst time during those 7-8 years. So I was starting at a very low level when we started with the treatment. And then I remember that I really had terrible days right after the hypoxic training.
Yes.
But then it took a week until I would recover from it, and then I felt better than the baseline from the treatment.
Exactly. Yeah. So it was like waves, always ups and down, and then a little bit better, a little bit better.
Yes.
This is the typical course of recovery, mitochondrial recovery, by mitochondrial problems, by mitochondrial diseases, such as chronic fatigue syndrome, which is a mitochondrial problem. And it is often starts with a virus infection or kind of stress events. Sometimes it's just psychological stress. And when people get this problem, when they feel that they're exhausted, they cannot think clearly, of course they start to take any kind of supplements which are offered on the internet, mitochondrial supplements. But it is not enough. For mitochondria, it's not enough if you just feed them with mitochondrial supplements. Why? Because chronic fatigue syndrome and many other mitochondrial problems, they are pretty complicated because there are several populations of mitochondria in the same cell. Let's say one population of mitochondria are good quality, so-called wild-type mitochondria. But there is always a certain percentage of damaged, mutated mitochondria. And mutated mitochondria, by many conditions, they take over the healthy mitochondria because they proliferate faster than healthy mitochondria. And that creates the problem when damaged mitochondria proliferate in a cell and they compete with the normal mitochondria. And this is always correlated with the increase of symptomatics, with the problems which are manifested as different symptoms. Okay, so we started in 2012, and the first month or two, it was a slow recovery.
Yes.
Yeah?
I think it took around 10 sessions until I didn't have this terrible day right after the session anymore.
Yeah.
So I remember the first 10 sessions roughly. I did the training. After the training, for the next couple of hours, I would feel great actually, and then the day afterwards really terrible. But after around 10 sessions, that effect wasn't that strong anymore.
Yeah, this is pretty typical pattern of recovery, because each time after each hypoxic session, the damaged mitochondria die out, and when they die, they explode and they produce mitochondrial enzymes which come in intracellularly, and they come out of the cells, and the blood is flooded with mitochondrial remains, mitochondrial DNA, which is perceived by our body as invasion of foreign bacteria. And therefore, massive die out of bad mitochondria causes symptoms like flu, weakness, and it has different manifestations. It is also called like Harish-Herxheimer reaction. But on the long run, when amount of bad mitochondria becomes lower, you experience less and less of these reactions, and then it stops completely. And that means that we achieved elimination of most damaged mitochondria in the cells. Very good. Now maybe a couple of words. What kind of treatment was that? Yeah. What is the intermittent hypoxic-hyperoxic training? This is the kind of inhalation treatment when people inhale oxygen low and oxygen enriched air through the mask. And it is controlled by a computer program. There are special devices called hypoxicators, and we were using one of such devices. Okay, then after 1 month of treatment, you went back to Germany, yeah? And what did you do? How it developed further on?
So actually, I have to say the difference before and after that 1 month was huge, because I didn't expect a progression this fast, and after that I could already start a low amount of physical training already, and could do more and more cognitive tasks, which I couldn't do before. Could basically do more workload, if you will. But it took you for complete recovery. It took you how long? What was? Well, it's difficult to determine what's a complete recovery. So I would say I was 80% recovered after roughly 6 months, maybe. But in relation to that long years before, that was amazingly fast for me.
Good, very good. And then you were so impressed by intermittent hypoxic training, yeah, that you made kind of career for you.
Yes, that's true. Yeah. So I got interested, like in the years being sick. I got more and more interested in physiology, in immunology, and cellular biology, and because there was not really much help around. So as a patient, you need to inform yourself, and so I got more and more interested in all these fields, and I decided to study sports science. I finished my diploma in that. Yeah, and actually now I'm working with athletes, treating them, or like helping them to improve their performance with the same method. Maybe I started very low and got to normal, and they are already with a quite high performance, but still they benefit from the same training.
Yes, absolutely. And this is most amazing by this method, that even athletes who are super trained, they are super fit, still they can benefit from this method. On the other hand, people who are weakened with mitochondrial disease, like you see chronic fatigue syndrome or Lyme borreliosis or many other chronic conditions, also for instance after chemotherapy with cancer treatments, all these conditions have to do with damaged mitochondria. Therefore, mitochondrial improvement, mitochondrial regeneration, it's the key. It's the key of the whole improvement that we can achieve. Okay, thank you very much, Sebastian. And I wish you much success with your sports career, and see you the next time.
Thanks for having me.